Hello, Physics 135 students. Welcome to the beginning of the spring 2026 semester for the first 3 minutes. I'll be your instructor for this course. My name is Ryan Farber, and we'll be going through some introductions today and a couple of different items in terms of Brightspace, the syllabus, and as you can maybe see in another tab already, I'm going to experiment with a Discord server to try to make this feel a little bit more like a community, like an in-person class might, compared to the kind of social isolation that some students experienced in the last and maybe the last two online classes that I've taught. So you can see that this is Google Meet. I'll be holding all of my office hours on Google Meet, so it's something useful to see, but this way, I'm maybe going to start doing kind of like picture in picture so that you all can see my face while I'm recording these. Although often I'll be recording kind of at night, probably when it's pretty dark. So no promises there. But another kind of new technology or item that I might include compared to the last few times I've taught. Now, I guess one little thing is that I do have two monitors, so you might see my eyes looking up quite a bit. But again, welcome to the first 3 minutes. I'm not going to go in full screen. I think that you all will hopefully be able to see all the text perfectly fine without it in slideshow mode, but we're going to be zooming around some other tabs today. So just kind of an overview. We're going to start with introductions and getting to know each other better. We're going to talk about some of the important logistical items of this course. The syllabus is like the key thing there. We'll also take a look at Brightspace together, and then kind of importantly also Discord. And that'll actually be part of the getting to know each other part. The third part will be going into the overview of the course material that you all will be learning, which is still part of the syllabus, but a little bit different from the logistics part. So first, who am I? Well, for one thing, you can tell that I'm a big fan of Disney movies, especially kind of early 2000s, as well as the 90s, and I guess I should say a lot of animation, not specifically Disney animation. So, for students that have taken a course with me before, some of this will be, well, a lot of this will be familiar. Some of this will be new, though, so please stay tuned. For all of you who are new, though, it's very nice to virtually meet you. So, I grew up in redwood, wine, and cow country in Northern California, which is where I currently am residing for family reasons. And just a few kind of fun facts, aside from being really into astronomy and physics now, of course, I was really interested in cosmology, the main sort of topic of this course when I was in middle school, high school, etc. But I was also very much into playing baseball. We went all the way to the state championship and won it. I was the closer for that game. I played a lot of other sports. I was also in band and played uh, really just clarinet, but as you'll see, I've learned a few other instruments. And then I'm really, really into redwoods and giant trees, well, specifically the giant sequoias. And then my claim to fame amongst my high school friends was that I completed the Pokedex for Ruby version, which took over 300 hours worth of kind of active time. I think I had close to 650 hours logged in terms of all the planting and harvesting that is kind of a side item in that game, although not all that was active. All right, and so now turning this around, I'd like to learn more about who you are. And to start with, just go ahead and mention your name, and you can do this either in the general tab or the lecture tab. So for this, so I have a invite link for our Discord server. I also want you to email me your responses because I don't really plan on going into the Discord much at all. One thing I will mention, since again, I don't know for sure if I'll be in this Discord server after today, is like note all messages in this server uh, will be recorded. I'm gonna, in future iterations, I might actually require the use of a Discord server to make sure that there's a participation aspect to the grade. I don't think I'll do that in this class, probably not, because I'd have to get the Discord bot set up and everything. But in future iterations, I might. So let's go ahead and make sure that that is sent. And ideally, that'll be a pinned message as well. So if you've never used Discord before, Discord is kind of like Slack. It's one of these instant messaging applications, um, but it's really easy to code Python bots for. So that's part of the reason why I'm using it. There is a discussion board feature in Brightspace, but in the past, students haven't really used that. And I know that a lot of students use Discord. Maybe not as much. Maybe it's decreasing in popularity. I don't know for sure. So I'm hopeful that this will feel familiar and something that'll make this a little bit more of a communal space where you can benefit from each other. It looks like my Google Meet kind of picture-in-picture idea is maybe not going to work out super well, but that's fine. We'll continue. So as far as where to respond with your name, you could do that in general, but I'd maybe prefer that you do it in lecture discussions. And I guess another important point is if you are familiar with Discord and you'd like to serve as a moderator, I mean, hopefully there's no one nefarious that jumps in here, but I think somehow bots are just kind of like scanning channel IDs and eventually jump in and say kind of weird stuff. So do email me if you'd be willing to serve as a moderator. Again, ideally I'll have a bot at some point that kind of auto moderate, but it might take me a while to code that up, since of course the focus will be on preparing your course materials. Okay, so that's item one in terms of who are you. Moving back to who am I, a little bit more detail. So again, I grew up in California. For college, I went kind of from coast to coast over to Massachusetts at a little tiny liberal arts school called Wheaton College. So the kind of size of campus of Fort Wayne or Purdue Fort Wayne felt familiar to me. I really enjoyed my time there in person. When I was at Wheaton, I minored in astronomy, majored in physics and math, almost minored in Italian and classics, and I really wanted to triple major, actually, with computer science, but it never quite worked out with my schedule. While I was there, I dabbled into a few other musical instruments, primarily piano. I really dove into Chopin's Revolutionary Etude and only got a fraction of the way into it. That was like the third song I tried learning after um after like Hot Cross Buns and like some sort of pop song that I forget now, as well as I Still Have a Soul by Epic Score, which is one of my favorite more electronic groups. And then I also learned some cello, which was pretty fun. And then the whole time that I was there, I was an observatory assistant. So I understand that the picture in picture has disappeared. I'll maybe reintroduce that later, but I think it's fine to continue for now. A little bit more detail. I really did a ton of different stuff while I was at college, and I hope that you all are similarly enjoying your college experience. Built a boat as part of the physics club. We also built a Rubens tube, which is kind of like a standing wave fire tube. Um, we ran into a little bit of trouble with the fire department, but overall it was a lot of fun. We placed pretty well in the university physics competition and did a lot of other fun stuff. All right, so back to you. So I'd like for you all to, again, message in the Discord as well as to email me your favorite thing about physics/astronomy. Okay, and then moving back to me, one last thing about Wheaton is I really did a lot of research, even starting with my freshman year. And it's really something that I encourage all students to pursue. You have world-class experts at Purdue Fort Wayne, and they're, basically at your disposal due to your tuition. I'm not going to say it's free, right? But your tuition is already paid for at this point if you're in this class. You might as well reach out to professors and try to do some research. Some examples, my freshman year, I built a laser. I spent way too many nights sleepless. So thankfully the picture-in-picture is gone, and Google Meets kind of smoothed things over, but I do wish that I slept a little bit more. Part of that was not just the astronomy, but I also just didn't really like to sleep when I was in college and until pretty recently. I investigated Enceladus, one of the icy moons of Saturn, whether it had geysers that could launch boulders. I looked at another icy moon in the solar system, this time one of Jupiter's called Europa, and investigated the transit time for microbes, or I should say putative microbes, to circulate in its under ice ocean. Did a lot of other stuff. This is a zoom in now of Enceladus's Tiger Stripes regions. These are areas where the Cassini spacecraft has detected water, liquid water, flowing out pretty fantastically. And this has been confirmed with the Hubble Space Telescope and more recently James Webb Space Telescope. So not the core content of this class. If you're interested in learning more about Europa, Enceladus, and the solar system, you should consider signing up for Astro 100, the solar system, which I don't know for sure if I'll be teaching it again, but is definitely a lot of fun. And then similarly, here is Europa with just the surface. So you can see that there's very interesting almost tectonic-like features, but this is all ice, unlike the Earth on our own um, eponymously named Earth planet. All right, so now back to you. I'd like you to, again, in the Discord as well as by email, mention your favorite thing outside of physics/astronomy. All right. And so I probably should be mentioning, like, make sure you pause the video and go and do those things. So pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and then sent this message, and ideally you've handled the first three at this point. Going back into, again, my kind of academic or career trajectory, after my undergrad days, I did my PhD really straight into it. I studied astronomy and astrophysics at the University of Michigan. I had a lot of fun going to their college football games. I hope that you all have enjoyed. I mean, it's not Purdue, of course, but hopefully you've enjoyed seeing Indiana University do so well. And believe that this is actually spelled correctly, but we'll, I guess, go with non-homogeneous. Actually, I see the issue. Um, Regardless, I did a bunch of different research, of course, during my PhD. Um, and in particular, my expertise was with respect to studying galaxy formation and evolution. I also played around with the Magellan telescopes in Chile and was part of a advocacy group for introducing legislation and really trying to improve dark skies. And in particular, I'm quite upset these days about just how bright the newest car headlights are, particularly in California. I don't know if it's as bad in Fort Wayne. A couple of years ago, it wasn't too bad. Um, in terms of my research, this is one example where I studied how cosmic rays influence the interstellar medium. On the far left, there's just cosmic ray advection, which basically means that they're tied to the motion. Like if you pour food coloring into a river, the food coloring will advect as the river flows downstream. In the middle case, we have diffusion. So similar thing with the food coloring. If you pour it in, it's not just going to advect, but it's going to spread out with time. And then third case, we had a plasma physics process where really there was a big change in the star formation rate for this modeled galaxy. Um, in addition to all the research that I was involved in, I also played hockey. I'd never played growing up. So that was quite an experience learning how to ice skate as well as forwards and backwards, as well as how to do different maneuvers with a stick. I was usually left wing, occasionally right wing. Got into swimming, powerlifting, built a gaming desktop, which I'd like to build a new one at this point, and did a variety of other items. All right, so now I'd like for you all to, again, pause the video, go to the Discord, send me an email, one random factoid about yourself. So please pause the video and handle those items now. And while you're doing that, hopefully you actually paused, but I'm going to spin back up the Google Meet. And I'll have to think about if I can do this in a more persistent manner in the future. I'm recording this through Streamlabs, and I think I technically could do picture in picture through that. I'll have to look into it later. Okay, so hopefully you handled this random factoid about yourself. Moving on. A little bit more about myself. After the PhD, I then was a postdoctoral researcher in Munich, Germany, or just outside of Munich. And I definitely enjoyed Weizen and Helles, different beers, while I was there. I also did a lot of different things, both in terms of galactic astrophysics, starting to look into AI with astrophysics, quantum computing, post-quantum cryptography, and got into marathon slash triathlon training. Did a lot of different things. One item you'll notice is Discord PY, which again, I do plan on getting a bot cooked up. Well, at some point, it's going to be my lowest priority, right? I'm going to focus on getting the lectures made, your reading assignments made, your quizzes made, your exams made, and then I'll circle back to like a Discord bot. So no guarantees that I have this done like this semester even, or not until the end of the semester, but ideally in future semesters, I'll be tracking like activity, and maybe even this semester I'll have that cooked up in time for some extra credit. But again, no promises there exactly. While I was a postdoctoral researcher, aside from the research that I led, I started to supervise different students. And at this point, I've supervised a dozen or probably over a dozen different student research projects. For one of those, this is actually one of my own research projects, but a very similar project involved studying the influence of magnetic fields on supernova ejecta. So in this case, we have two cold clouds that are potentially star forming. They start out pretty warm at 10 to the 5 Kelvin. In other words, 100,000 degrees. Doesn't actually matter at this temperature whether you're talking really Celsius, Fahrenheit, or Kelvin. But it's very, very hot. Rapidly, these clouds cool down because this is uh, really dominated by oxygen 7, oxygen 6 emission lines. So it cools down in an astrophysical blink of the eye, only a few 100,000 years or so. This TSC is the sound crossing time. Don't worry about like understanding the cosmic ray stuff, or this is really going beyond, what you're expected to learn, I should say. But just to give you some more context about my background, and you can see that on the left and the right cases, these little tiny objects, if I zoom in here, you can see that they're really, really rotating. And it seems what I discovered is that there's a rotational instability. And in star forming clouds, we know that gravity can, or certain gravitational instabilities can cause clouds to fragment. But this was evidence that there can be a rotationally driven instability that further causes fragmentation, which might impact the star formation process, especially in these supernova driven hot winds where the background temperature is a million or 10 million degrees Kelvin, or not degrees Kelvin, but 10 million Kelvin. All right, and then after my postdoc, I was a visiting assistant professor of physics in person at PFW for about a year. Since then, I've been a limited term lecturer slash adjunct professor, going on now 3 semesters This is the third online course that I've taught, and overall, I'd say I'm following the same sort of patterns in terms of fall 2025 and a little bit of going back to spring 2025 in terms of really requiring AI usage to try to hedge off academic integrity issues. But I am still trying to improve these online courses every time I teach them. And for that matter, this is only the second time I've taught the first 3 minutes. So you should expect things to be a bit different if you've had this class compared to my previous semesters. A lot will be similar structure, but I try to improve a bit every time. If you notice a way that I can improve, I am very receptive to feedback. Please do feel free to email me. And that's applicable whether you can think of something to improve compared to last semester's, or just as the semester's progressing, if you have any feedback. Um, and then kind of most recently, I've been working with a lot of different individuals, both in the summer as well as in the fall, everywhere from middle and high school students through undergrad students like yourselves, of course, as well as retired lawyers and doctors. I guess one's a retired lawyer, and then there are two still actively practicing medical doctors I've been working with, leading to a lot of different research projects. And in case you're curious, because there is going to be a semester-long research project, which we'll talk about more in the second lecture of this week, you can take a look at my Google Scholar. Admittedly, not a ton of this is related to cosmology or the Big Bang, but still you can get a sense of what my prior students have worked on, some of which are undergrad students, or in this case, I think a master's student is more of a collaborator student, a previous master's student, high school student, etc. And so this is ordered by year, so you can see what I've been up to most recently. One thing that hasn't quite made it into Google Scholar yet, but I'm very happy about is this review article on low red dots. This is understanding really like the last part of this course's material in terms of really the impacts of cosmology and the our change in our understanding of cosmology from the last few years in terms of dark energy and dark matter. James Webb Space Telescope has really been pushing the envelope in identifying brand new objects that are really making it difficult for theorists to understand what the heck is going on with the universe. And this promises to really um, shape our understanding of black holes, galaxies, and possibly the universe as a whole. So, of course, this is still breaking news. There will be changes and really exciting news, I hope, throughout the semester, as well as in the next few years. So, ideally, you'll latch on to how to read research through your semester-long research project and be able to keep a track of things, not just this semester, but as time moves forward, if you're interested. Of course, I know that there are a lot of non-science majors in this course, as well as some physics majors as well. Okay, and now you should have already handled these 4 items, but if you haven't, then please, please, please do join the Discord server and introduce yourself. And that's not really just to me, but that's more of to introduce yourself to the class. And then to introduce yourself to me, please, please, please send your responses to me by email. That's really the best way to reach me. I don't plan on being on the Discord server much. And again, possibly I won't be on there ever again after today. Although ideally I will be on a teeny tiny bit when I'm playing around with the bot at the very least. Okay, so this is the end of our kind of slides introduction. We're now going to get into bright space in the syllabus. This will hopefully be, it's definitely not going to be as short as half an hour, but I'm going to try to keep this to 45 minutes or so, because there's going to be another lecture later on this week, and I want you all to be participating with each other, ideally in the Discord. I don't want this to be like a full hour or hour and a half lecture. But in the future, just to let you know, in the future, we might have hour and a half long lectures for for the week. It could even go to 2.5 hours for if I'm combining the two lectures together, like I probably will do. We'll just kind of see because I'm teaching this class very, very differently than the first time I taught Physics 135, which was flipped classroom, which I don't think would work too well with this more asynchronous course format. Okay, so onto Brightspace and the syllabus. So this is a Brightspace kind of landing page. For me, you all might see this a little bit differently, but you can see that there's the announcements. I will say that compared to last semester, I'm going to try to be a little bit more active in terms of sending announcements. I do generally expect my students to get acquainted with the deadlines and not for me to have to point them out week by week by week. But I'm going to try to get into more of a habit of posting announcements more regularly. We'll see if that sticks or not. If we go to the content tab, then that's really my preferred way to move around Brightspace. You'll see that there are some different options here on this bar. The only one of which is populated so far is readings, but a little bit later today, this first lecture should be showing up. And I'll try to make sure to be posting these to YouTube as well so that there are going to be captions that you all can read to improve accessibility. Now, in terms of the reading assignments, the first one is due this upcoming Sunday on January 18th. The second one is due the following Sunday. These will be due every single Sunday except for probably the last week of class. Sometimes I have not had assignments due during spring break, but on the other hand, so I'm kind of debating this. So you can, let me know what your thoughts are. Would you rather have assignments be due during spring break, or on the other hand, there would be assignments due on the very last week of classes before finals, which I think are kind of discouraged. But so that's why I'm waffling on. But we're going to have 15 reading assignments in total, 15 quizzes, 4 exams, and then there should be 15 weeks worth of lectures. Maybe there will be 16 recordings. Maybe there will be somewhere between 16 and 30. We'll just kind of see how that shakes out, whether I record 1 video per week or 2 videos per week. Okay, so into the syllabus, which also breaks down the core grading aspects, and then I don't have the semester-long research project like tab posted quite yet, but I'll be adding that pretty soon this week because it is meant to be a semester-long effort. And compared to last semester, where there was just a submission at the very, very end, I'm going to be requiring some submissions throughout the semester this time. All right, so here's the syllabus. As part of your first quiz, you will have to understand what is in the syllabus. I won't be covering this letter by letter today, but some of the core items are the best way to contact me is by email. Our office hour schedule is not going to be fixed. You'll have to see Brightspace announcements. I'll hopefully have that tentatively lined up this week. And if the rotating office hour schedule doesn't work for you, then do feel free to email me. We can set up an appointment. One other important item is that students, I guess by and large, think that my courses are too much work. Although I have found that this is true pretty broadly in the physics department. So I don't expect to be reducing the amount of work in my courses anytime soon. The expectation is since this is a 3 credit hour class, for 6 hours per week of out of class effort. And for some context, for universities like Harvard, MIT, Caltech, etc., they have even more stringent requirements. This is already dialed down a bit compared to University of Michigan, where the expectation would have been 9 hours per week of out of class effort for 3 hours of in class effort, quote unquote, since we're not actually in person, but by in class effort, I mean related to these lectures. So again, 6 hours per week, that In other words, will involve your readings and quizzes most weeks, but does also include the exams, which will happen roughly once per month, as well as the semester-long research project. So if you find that the readings and quizzes, you're consistently spending more than 6 hours per week, which can happen in this specific course, there's going to be a lot of reading from week to week, then please do let me know and we can talk about strategies to help you improve your efficiency. I probably won't be changing the assignments very much, but I am happy to help you learn how to be more efficient in completing your assignments. All right, and then the main other logistical items here, I would say, are really related to the grades as well as the course materials. So really, really importantly, you all will need to acquire this book, Big Bang: The Origin of the Universe. It's by Simon Singh, who is also very well known, although maybe not by you right now, but he's very well known for writing the three-body problem. He's a kind of a science and math populist. Let me go ahead and expand this just in case it's a bit small on your screens. And this book, last time I taught this was $7 to rent, and I think $18 new. Probably due to inflation, this could be a little bit more expensive, although it's a pretty old book now. So ideally, this is accessible through the bookstore. I made a request a little bit before New Year's. Um, but if not, it is quite cheap on Amazon. If you run into issues acquiring this book, then let me know. But I cannot share, every single page of this book with you. You will need to get your own copy at some point. Now, towards the end of this class, we might start using Astronomy 2E, which is a free online textbook. But a good chunk of this class, if not the majority, will be the Big Bang. I haven't fully mapped out the readings yet, but I hope to do that pretty soon. Now, in terms of the grades, there are really four key components to the grades in this course. The first is reading assignments. There's going to be 2 points per reading assignment. Similarly for the quizzes, 2 points per quiz. For the tests, the plan is for there to be 4 tests at 5 points each. So that would be 20 points total. So again, roughly one exam per month. And then their final research project, the plan is for this to be 20 points. Now, the syllabus is tentative and subject to change. We might end up dialing down to 3 tests and having the research project take basically, if there are 3 tests, 5 point each, we'd end up with 15% total. The research project might get bumped up to 25%. But this is what I'm planning on right now and what I otherwise would expect we'll have. And keep in mind that in this course, every point that you see is really a percentage point that you are earning towards your final grade. So, I mean, you'll see a more traditional percentage in Brightspace in the grades, but when I'm offering an extra credit point, keep in mind that that single extra credit point is, in other words, a full percentage point boost towards your final grade. Okay, so that covers really most of the key logistics. We'll zoom back here to the course materials, but one really, really important thing in terms of the course logistics is regarding academic integrity and AI use. So there are a couple of different issues last semester that really caused me to lose some hair or to really got upset about academic integrity issues last semester. So to try to hedge that out, especially because I didn't have nearly as many issues in fall 2025, partly that's because AI models have improved from fall 2025 to spring 2025. But the other thing I think is that if you're forced to use AI models all the time, it'll become abundantly clear to you that there are certain patterns that they follow. It's just really easy to intuitively, at a glance, see if something is AI generated versus not. So in terms of academic integrity, the main thing here is that plagiarism is a big deal. If you copy paste from ChatGPT, that is plagiarism, as much as from Gemini or other large language models, or just from Wikipedia or from Google. It's really the same thing that has been around for decades now. So please, please, please do not plagiarize. And in fact, for this course, you are going to be required to use AI, as well as to use your own brain, of course. But in terms of AI use, um, I have this kind of boilerplate which was copied from last semester, and it's largely applicable to your semester-long research project. That really should only be using AI in the semester-long research project if you're doing a quantitative or empirical study. We'll talk more about what I mean by that and the options that will not require AI use later, or not as much, I should say. Um, Now, regarding the use of AI in your reading assignments, you do need to follow this policy still, like about how you validated AI generated content, if at all. And I realize I need to send an updated response to one student, but if you are validating AI generated content, then you need to be citing that information. I don't really care if you use MLA or APA or whatever, but just whatever citation format you like, just stick with it. And really, you're going to need to mention the AI tool used, including the version number, right? Because there's differences between Gemini 2.5 Flash versus Gemini 3 Pro Preview, etc. The data of the query and other relevant information. This should really include like your prompt to the AI. Ideally, a screenshot that includes both your prompt as well as its response. You don't have to include all of its thinking involved, though. All right, so that's the core of the logistics. Just going into the reading assignment, please make sure that you read each assignment instruction carefully. You'll notice that there's a lot of overlap in the instructions between R1 and R2, except for the page numbers. But then for this assignment, in the bullet points, in both cases, you need to submit your original summary. But additionally, in R1, you need to have your summary improved by an artificial intelligence large language model. So again, Gemini, ChatGPT, etc. I like Find, which I forgot to list here because I haven't used it in a while. But that doesn't require any sort of login, or at least it didn't. It might have changed now. But then the third bullet point has changed between R1 and R2. And a lot of the reading assignments will end up having the same 3 bullet points. But I will try to keep you all on your toes and change that occasionally to make sure that you are paying careful attention to the instructions. One thing I do need to change here, I just realized, is that I want you all to be submitting a single PDF for all of your assignment submissions. So I'll be changing that, I guess, after I finish recording this. But so, okay, so bullet point 3 is you need to use GPT-0 or some similar tool to find the score of your original summary versus your improved summary. GPT0.me gives you 5 free scans, so that should be perfectly fine. Maybe it's more than 5 now, even. And then for R2, in contrast, I won't be asking you to use GPT0.me on every single assignment since there's only 5 free, although there are similar tools out there. Instead, for R2, you'll be writing a reflection on how you can improve your original summary. And I have had students that have tried to get away with ChatGPT writing the reflection itself as well as sometimes the student will write the original summary and then ask ChatGPT to do the reflection for them. I don't understand, honestly, why you wouldn't think, or not why you, but why some students wouldn't think that I wouldn't catch this. I guess one thing I'll mention is that I will not necessarily read every single assignment. By and large, the grading of these reading assignments are on a by effort basis. So I'll be grading really like a selection in detail and otherwise just checking for submissions or in some cases just very, very briefly glancing since we have quite a few students in this class and I have to do a lot in terms of course prep. So in the past, I've kind of killed myself on the grading, and I'm trying to avoid that as much as I can moving forward to both make sure that I can still improve useful feedback and timely feedback, while making sure that grades don't, you don't have to wait like months upon months for me to go through it and give detailed feedback on every single reading assignment, which I otherwise would like to do, but it's just not time feasible, unfortunately. Okay, so that covers the logistics and some, maybe not so fun stuff in terms of talking about how, again, I've gotten pretty upset with academic integrity issues related to AI recently. And I should mention that I work with two different Google engineers these days, helping them learn how to use AI effectively for improving their efficiency. So I am totally on board with students learning and using large language models because it is something you will have to use in the workforce, I do believe. But at the same time, these there needs to be a human in the loop still. If you're not involved at all, then there's not any point for you to do this material. The whole point of this course is for you to learn for yourself about the universe. Okay, so going back to the syllabus, and really this will be the last part of class, so I'll get the little picture in picture going, and yeah, I'll try to think of maybe an improved way to do this picture in picture next time. Okay, and then back to the syllabus. So the in terms of the course materials, let's get into that. The really there's going to be a couple of core components of this course. For Unit 0, which will be fairly relatively short, we'll be going into ancient myths and legends. In Unit 1, we'll be kind of branching off from that, talking about the development of science, both in terms of the Greek kind of origins of natural philosophy and talking about the paradoxes that Zeno and other Greek philosophers discovered and really puzzled over. One of my favorite parts of this course, honestly, is about the ancient Greeks and digging into that. Um, Unit 2 will be going into the Copernican revolution, really the birth of modern science. In Unit 3, we'll be getting into what a lot of you maybe were more of imagining you were signing up for. So I do want to make it clear that a big chunk of this course is really on the history of cosmological thought. And it's really only in Unit 3 and Unit 4 that we get towards today, towards really the present understanding. So Unit 3, we'll be talking about 20th century physics, and a lot of this has to do with Edwin Hubble, an American astronomer who really went from being a lawyer very briefly to being one of the most important astronomers in cosmology. And as a key component of this, we'll describe what the cosmic microwave background radiation is. Um, for Unit 4, this should really be more of 20th to 21st century at this point. We'd be talking about the standard cosmological model, which was kind of finalized in the 90s, and then some not so standard models, and really talking about like a elementary overview on particle physics, the four forces, is a little bit related to part one as well, and like what is dark matter, what is dark energy. And so, in other words, in terms of your semester long research project, it's a little bit problematic because some of the most interesting topics for you all to cover is really in Unit 4, which we don't get to until the very end of this course. But I will try to give some suggestions earlier on as far as sensible topics to cover. Although, if you are more interested in history and philosophy, you definitely could do your semester-long research project on ancient myths and legends, paradoxes, and Copernican revolution. You don't have to do something that's within the past years in contrast to the Stars and Galaxies course. Okay, so that covers everything for today. I hope that you all enjoyed this first lecture, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know each and every one of you a bit better as we move along in our exploration, really not just of some individual objects in our solar system or in the galaxy, but really the origins of the universe as a whole. So I hope that you have a pleasant rest of your day. Stay tuned for our second part of this first week lecture, probably come online in a few days. Take care and auf Wiedersehen. Ah, and then of course I need to turn off the recording on Streamlabs.